Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Disciples and Devotees. Today I'm very honored to have Devika with us. Namaste, Devika.
Namaste, Narad. Thank you.
How we met today is seeming coincidence, but not, because the Divine Mother is guiding each of us.
Yes.
And perhaps you could tell us about your first experience with Sri Aurobindo.
Yes, this was...
How old were you?
I was about 12 years old, and my mother and grandmother were by then disciples of Sri Aurobindo and the mother. My mother had a book of Dilip Kumar Roy's on her table. Sri Aurobindo came to me. And I happened to be passing by. I picked it up and read the title and flipped it over. It had Dilip Kumar Roy's photograph, a younger version of him. And so that was it. I mean, it didn't interest me more than that, let's say. I was just 12.
By the way, I bought that book for 1 rupee. At that time it was 1 rupee.
And even now, it's not, I bought it recently to read it, actually read it. And it's not more than like 100 and some rupees, even now. Amazing. So, very shortly after that, I had a beautiful experience, a dream vision of Sri Aurobindo, where he came to me. And it was in the house of my grandmother's in Kashmir. And a house that I love and I've spent a lot of my time and a lot of my childhood. So the experience was Sri Aurobindo walking ahead in his dhoti, an older Sri Aurobindo, an older Dilip Kumar Roy, both wearing dhotis, both with eyes closed, both walking, one behind Dilip Kumar Roy following Sri Aurobindo. And so I see them and it's so vivid. The colors, the detail, the sunlight. I can remember the dhoti, that there was a thread around them. And it was remarkable detail. And I follow them around the house walking behind. And I don't interact with them. But they walk behind the house to the boundary wall, which was a brick ivy wall. There's a ladder on it. Both of them climb up the ladder, and I follow. They disappear, and so I'm scrambling up the ladder, following them, and I look up, and I see this column of gold light, and Sri Aurobindo and Dilip Kumar Roy floating up in this column of gold light. And that was my dream vision, and it stays with me today, and it has probably led the course of my life till now, because as my mentor, Professor Basu, said that this is Sri Aurobindo telling you to make your yoga conscious, and that he is your guru, and he is with you. So that was a divine blessing and guidance, and that was the beginning of my conscious yoga with Sri Aurobindo and the mother.
And you were 12.
And I was 12.
Incredible.
Yes.
And your family was also quite close?
Yes. So my grandmother came to the ashram in her 50s, because she had had a heart attack when she was 49, and Professor Basu had happened to be in Srinagar, which is Kashmir, at that time. And someone introduced him to her, and after she got better, actually before she even got better, my mother was there looking after her. And my mother met Professor Basu, and he said, "Don't worry, your mother will be fine, and you'll come to Pondicherry in a while." And my mom's thinking, from Kashmir to Pondicherry, when are they going to travel? But as it happens, that was the way that things happened. And a few years later, they came to Pondicherry, bringing us, my sister and me, and my mother and my grandmother. So at that time, Professor Basu or Aurobindo Basu had said, if you come to Pondicherry, stay with me. So every time we came, we actually stayed with him.
In that house on Rue Suffren.
Yes.
Yes, I know
at his
it well.
house. So we know, so we know it well, and he made us very welcome. And in those days, it was not affordable to stay in hotels, and I don't even think there were too many. So it was just perfect. We used to take the train from Bombay and come be with Professor Basu, which I now realize what a blessing it was.
Well, we've both known him
Yeah.
intimately in our life, and he's written you quite a few letters. Can you give us just a brief view of your understanding of his letters?
Yes. So with the very first experience that I had of Sri Aurobindo and Dilip Kumar Roy, my mother wrote on my behalf, explaining him my dream, and he wrote back and sort of gave me the whole meaning of it and how I should take it. And he said that Sri Aurobindo's presence would always be with me whenever I wanted to call upon that. And I think after that, as I grew older, I probably reached out to him on my own for help and guidance. And it was hard to speak with him on the telephone because he couldn't hear very well. And it was just easier to explain in a letter, which was the way we did it. So I had forgotten about a lot of the letters which my mom had kept, and she gave back to me a few years ago. And I read through them and I was, wow, how special I felt with him, how protected, how guided, how Mother had placed someone there for me that could be a physical guide. And that's something that I miss even till today. I miss his presence in Pondicherry every time I come from Bombay, and I really wish I had someone I could just, say, hey, what does this mean? What does that mean? What do I do? How do I take this? But I guess we have to now reach within and let Mother be our guide. So the letters were beautiful, the questions I asked him on my work, my dreams, experiences, relationships, what should I do with work and this. And he was always guiding me on how to take things, what to look out for, how I should grow in a particular area, what I should look out for in my work, because I had my own graphic design company at that time. So, yes, I think I had a wonderful guide. I don't know our past connections. I don't know what lives we had, but we must have, because there was such an innate love for his presence. I always felt blessed. I always felt the time together was special. I really miss that now. But whatever time we had together was very special.
I had met another man who was very close to Aurobindo Basu.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking a little bit, and I said, yes, and he did not suffer fools lightly. And you know that about his character.
Yeah.
He was quite strong,
He was. He was.
but
Yeah.
always loving. And that was something very important for me at the age of 23 when I first met him, because he was my Upa Guru, the one who led me to Mother, or helped me to come to Mother, and I will never forget him. Actually, I was with him just before he left his body, a few months before. I even felt that that he had waited until I left.
Oh.
Yes. I do remember one thing I'll share with you, and that was his big door, which was rotting away. And I got someone to completely repair it. And he was very grateful. And one day he said to me, let's go downtown. I want to get some things at this bakery. I said, okay. So we go, and just before the bakery, there's this English clothing shop. And he takes me in there, and he buys me a pair of pants and a shirt. in appreciation for fixing the door. And as you're well aware, his room was always a mess.
Yes, many a time I offered to clean it for him. Shelves were dusty, everything was askew, but he never let me. I so wanted to do something for him, but he never allowed it. He said, "Oh, I don't bother and don't do it." So I never could.
And he knew exactly where every book was in his room.
Yes.
He would tell me, go to this shelf, and it's the 5th book
Oh,
on that shelf.
wow.
And he would share things with me that Mother had told him. I don't know if I shared this one with you before, where he said that he showed me Mother's letter, in which he writes to her and says, "It's a strange feeling I have, but the moment I give a talk, I feel Sri Aurobindo is speaking through me." And Mother writes back, "The more you open to him, the more he will speak through you."
Wow.
So beautiful.
Yes, so beautiful, so blessed.
And he would show me the books of the early church fathers in Christianity,
Oh,
and how they were so open from the heart, from the psychic being.
yes, actually, I do remember that. I don't know how or why I shared it, but he asked me either to get a book for him, or he shared something with me that I prompted me to share, that I had this book called The Gnostic Gospels by Elaine Pagel. And she had written this book, and I think he was either writing an article or using it for a lecture. But I had the book, and it wasn't available here because I had got it from the US. And he said, "Can I borrow it?" And I said, "Sure." And I didn't quite know what he was going to do with it, but I sent it to him because, yes, in that very same line of Christianity, I'm not quite sure what he was doing. Yeah. So that was one
Interesting.
book that he borrowed, and I felt so proud that I had something that he could use of mine. So, yeah.
Tell me about your life's work and your artistry in this marvelous book, For the Love of God.
So, when I was 22, I was studying in the US, at that time at a design school in Providence. And, just, I guess, the sort of pains of being on one's own, dealing with life, work, friends, relationships, I started writing a diary. And it wasn't an extensively heavily written page, but I had my thoughts, I had poems, I had experiences and visions, and I would write that all down. And many years later, when I had a few diaries collected and a few sketches along with it, I had showed it to a very dear friend who was much older. And he said, why don't you put these together? Because they could be of use to someone. They might gain from it, from the experience. And I said, well, I'm nobody. Who would want to read my private life, personal life stories? So he said, no, don't judge it. Just put it together. And which is then what I did. I put my sort of fears aside and anxiety, and I compiled it into a book. And I illustrated where I did not have an illustration. And I selected the lines or words or poetries depending on certain categories. So I started with inspiration, aspiration, relationships, God, unity, oneness. So I have these various categories which I put my various material, be it a poem, be it a photograph or a thought or whatever, and that's how I put it together. And then I thought, why did I do all this? Because for the love of God, for the love for the divine, because that's my goal. And all this process, all this angst, all this pain and growing and visions and effort, it's all for that one divine. And so that's what I named the book.
And I feel through the whole book this force of love.
Yeah.
It is so powerful.
Thank
I haven't
you.
read every page, but everything I see in beauty and often flowers also.
Yes, I have a great affinity to flowers as well. And I have a garden in Kashmir because we have our house there. And I take an active interest in what flowers to grow where, because my grandmother actually managed those gardens, and we have quite a few around the house. It's a fairly big property. And after she left her body, and we resumed living in Kashmir, summertime, I planned the garden, of course, with my parents, but the flowers and the seasons, and I just took immense interest in all that. So, yes, I love flowers, and I know the mother also loves flowers, and I live to go there every May when it's spring and the garden is abundant. And I know now which flowers grow in which seasons, and plan that with the gardener. So, yes, I love flowers. I try and bring flowers home whenever I can.
Did Aurobindo Basu encourage you at all in your life's work?
Yes, actually, he did. I had chosen graphic design as a major before, but as I worked through and evolved, and I would ask him for advice, he said, focus on book illustration. And he also said children's book illustration, which I haven't actually gotten into a lot, and I wasn't trained as a professional illustrator, but yes, I could paint and draw, and I went to an art school, and I had an interest in that anyway. But book illustration is one thing he definitely urged me on to do. And so actually, in the course of my design work professionally, I did try and illustrate where I could, but this is probably the first book that's illustrated completely by me. And so I felt maybe I fulfilled a little bit of what he said I should do.
Yes. yes.
and hope to do some more.
When was the last contact with him?
So, I think 2009, I spent a lot of time with him because I had come on my own, and that was wonderful. Um, I'm not sure if I met him in 2010. I think I did come in 2010, but I tried to visit him. I bought the bunch of lotus flowers because he called himself the lotus in his letters to me, because Arabinda means lotus. So I said, let me take a bunch of lotus for him, and but I wasn't allowed to see him. Um, either he was not well enough. I had heard he wasn't well enough and he wasn't seeing anybody, so to speak, or very few people. But I tried to get in. I took the flowers to his house, and a lady answered the door, the one who took care of him, and I said, could you please tell him Devika is here and from Bombay and I'd like to meet him. But she said, no, he doesn't, or he can't meet. So I was very disappointed, and I never met him again after that. So that made me very sad, because I wish I had met him at least once before he left his body, but it wasn't to be. And
I'd like to ask you a little bit about your contact with Mother.
So initially, when I had this experience with Sri Aurobindo, my focus was Sri Aurobindo, until I came across where Sri Aurobindo said that if you're doing my yoga, you have to surrender to the Mother. And in my child's mind, I was seeing, figuring there's a difference, but of course now I know there's not. But it took me a little bit to shift my focus to the Mother, and just mentally, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And also Professor Basu told me that when he saw me in Bombay, he used to stay with us. He told me that, what is my connection with this young girl? He saw the Mother standing beside me. And of course, that was much later. But my experience with the Mother was just then, because Sri Aurobindo said, surrender to the Mother, I surrendered to the Mother. I shifted completely to her. So that even in my dreams, where I had unpleasant experiences with, say, vital beings, my first thing was to call out to the Mother. So the Mother is very much now with me, and I reach out to her all the time. She's with me all the time.
Did you come when she was still in her body?
No, unfortunately, no. I was probably 4 years old when she left her body.
Oh, so young.
But we didn't know of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, I think, till I was about 7 or 8. That's probably the first trip I made to Pondicherry. So, yeah. But now it's just Mother, Mother. Mother rings in my heart.
What do you see for your future life?
What do I see? What do I hope to see?
Yes. Well, in your work especially.
Yes, so my work has shifted a lot. It's shifted from just graphic design, corporate graphic design, to actually shifting to book publishing and design.
Oh.
So I am now not doing regular graphic design work, though I design like my own book and other books that come to me. But my work now is, I feel, taking the truths that we know, or whether it's Sri Aurobindo's writings, whether it's the Mother's writings, taking them and representing them in a new way. Because I personally don't think people are going to be reading Life Divine or synthesis of yoga, or what, a lot in the future. Maybe, maybe not. It's not that it's not relevant, but I find already it's hard to read, even for us, even for me. I'm studying it, I'm studying these books. So I would like to take Sri Aurobindo's teachings, the mother's teachings, and maybe represent them not only for children, for adults. So take the ideal child, perhaps, and illustrate it, make it actually readable for a child. It could be, it needn't be a book. It could be a, multi-dimensional, multi-faceted book. It could be digital, could have music and sound and videos. And so that's probably, I guess, the future. Not the printed book as much, though, we are more old school and trained in, in printed book first and then maybe going digital. But yes, so I see books and such material spring forth. It could be in the form of a book. It may be that it could be a film. It could be anything, any media.
We haven't really covered too much on Aurobindo Basu's letters to you.
Yes.
Could you enlarge upon that?
Yeah, sure.
How he felt about you, how you felt about him, and your correspondence.
So I felt this deep feeling of being protected and guided and love for him. I felt like, there was somebody there to guide me in all matters of life. He was a father, mentor figure to me. I've never had that kind of a spiritual mentor again. He never forgot my birthdays. And even though he didn't have much, he always offered to help with my work. He would send me 100 rupees to buy a cake for my birthday. He would send the blessings packets from the Samadhi, the birthday note, the birthday card that went out, or any other darshan day. He would always remember that and never forgot my birthday. And when we used to ask him, when is your birthday? He was like, why do you want to know when my birthday is? Now I know when his birthday is, but I never knew back then. He never told us because he probably didn't want us to make a fuss of him. So a lot of advice on relationships and people I had met, tough times with, friends and work, and he was always there as a guide. I know that as I grew older, I think I realized how special I was to him, how I didn't realize that actually till I read his letters again when I was much older. Because when I read the letters back then, it didn't strike me. But now when I read them and I can feel that love for me. And I know that he's there somewhere and we'll meet again someday, but in the future. But yes, it was very special.
Now you have recently met a very dear friend of mine, Shraddhalu Ranade. What did he tell you?
So he told me that, he said, do you know that you had a previous lifetime with Sri Aurobindo? And I said, no, I didn't. I'm sure, obviously, because I had such a strong experience come to me, and I told him, I shared that with Shraddhalu. And he said that, yes, that's Sri Aurobindo telling you that he's still with you and to continue the sadhana that you were doing from the previous life. So he said, wherever you left off in the previous life, that imprint has come forward very early on in your life so you can continue. And I always felt this very, this sort of need to, this urgency in continuing with my sadhana from a very young age. And I think that's right. So that imprint of that life carried through, and that's what Shraddhalu shared with me. He said, your psychic being is leading you, Sri Aurobindo is guiding you at this very moment in everything that you do. So I said, oh, that's wonderful, because that brings such a sense of peace. One knows that one is guided, but for someone else to tell you, someone like Shraddhalu to tell you that they're there with you and they're guiding you, it just makes you feel, I have nothing to worry about. What can happen? They're with me, and that was wonderful.
When Aurobindo Basu finally was given permission to live in the ashram, you know that they kept him out for 16 years.
No, I didn't till you told me.
He wrote to Sri Aurobindo, and Sri Aurobindo replied back, I have spoken with the mother, and we feel that you should get a little more life experience outside. But then finally they invited him to come, and he never left again.
Yeah. Well, we were lucky to know him and to have his guidance and his presence. I wish I had had more time with him, but I'm grateful for whatever I had. And you're lucky you had a lot more.
Quite a few, nearly 50 years I've known him.
Yeah.
And he was, without question, a tremendous guide who could see everything. He had that vision. He could see the problems you had and tell you how to work on them. And I think that's the same for you in a way.
Yes, absolutely, because there was a time when I had this feeling of somebody banging on my head, and it was very disturbing, and I didn't know it was a sound from within, and I really felt somebody was sitting there with a hammer over my head. And I told him on the phone, I said, I don't know what this is, but it's very disturbing. I can't think properly. And he said, no, these are all these vital entities. They know the people who are doing their sadhana, and they come and try to distract you. So he said, from now on, don't worry about it. Don't think about it. And within 2 to 3 days, it was gone. So it never came back. And he helped my whole family in that way. Even my grandmother, I didn't talk about her, but she was the one who came first with my mother. And he told her, he said, the divine has asked me to take care of you. And my grandmother was very fortunate. She would come here for 2 to 3 months at a time and stay here. I don't know if she stayed with him all the time, but maybe initially.
Do you remember the years roughly when she came? Or decade?
Yeah, it would have been the 1980s and 90s. And 2000 onward till probably up to about 2005 or 6.
Did any of your family meet Mother?
No, unfortunately, no. We just missed her by a few years.
You said you had a few experiences with Mother. Could you share anything?
Well, not too many, but the one that stands out to me the most was this dream that I had of going into an inner prayer room where there were only photographs of the mother, just all over. And I remember going in, it felt very sacred. It was all white. And it felt very sacred. And maybe that white had a significance now because that's mother's color, right? White. And so I remember going in and praying to her, and as I prayed, I felt this feeling of bliss, the closest I've ever come to experiencing anything what is meant by ananda or bliss. And I felt that, and maybe it was a visitation to my inner psychic self where the mother's presence was there very strongly. And so that was really one of my main experiences with her. Another one was perhaps when I was visiting the center in Bombay, and I knelt down at the altar, and I heard this voice in my head, which could have been hers. It wasn't male or female specifically, but it said, "This is for you." And my eyes were closed, and I opened my eyes. There was a frangipani, a champa flower, fallen right in front. There was nothing with champa around, and right in front of me was a champa flower. And that was a miracle.
Psychological perfection.
Psychological perfection. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it was, I don't know, it was some sort of message, but wonderful.
Is there anything else that you can remember about our beloved Aurobindo Basu? Maybe from your letters?
Well, nothing, exceptional, except that, yes, yes, actually, there was one very nice thing when I read. I felt very special that when I had just visited him a week prior to the letter that he wrote to me, and he wrote that he had felt very strongly the presence of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, and that I was also present there with him, but a younger version of myself, a more mental and psychic presence rather than a physical presence. So that was something that I mean, when I read back, I wonder at that, and I say, wow. And so that was something very precious that when I read, I feel that's very special. And yeah, just another memory of him being so sweet and fatherly and protective and wanting to take me out when I came to Pondicherry.
Oh.
He took me out for dinner to Rendezvous, which was, I think, just 2 blocks from his place. So that was very sweet in his white pajamas, and he was saying, take every step, offer it to the divine, every step you take. And he showed me step by step. He said, offer this to the divine, offer this to the divine. And we went and we had a sweet little dinner. I had some sandwiches and he had something, and I dropped him back to his house and I walked back on top of the world.
How beautiful.
That was lovely. After that, I think he was too weak to step out of his house.
Devika, could you tell me if you've met any of the special people in the ashram?
Well, when we were children, so I used to meet Nirod Baran, who was just by the Samadhi. He would be there. I didn't actually speak with him much because older sadhak, but we used to just stare and observe him reading his newspapers. And Professor Basu used to visit him almost every day, I think.
Oh yes, I was often there.
So they would sit there and read the newspaper. I think the doors were open to the room, and so we would watch. I would watch, observe them, and hope that perhaps I could get a few words in with Professor Basu. And then one day Professor Basu did introduce me to Nirod Baran, and we shared the same birthday, which was 17th
November 17th.
Yes, which was November 17th.
I know it well.
So
and he would have to celebrate it on the 18th.
Yeah.
Because of Mother's passing.
Yeah.
So he always celebrated his birthday on the 18th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me that was special. I felt great because his birthday was also on the 17th of November. And then of late, I've met a lot more. I met Bhakti Ben. I don't know if you know who Bhakti Ben is. She was managing a center in Bombay. Her sisters and brothers took care of honesty over here, I think.
Ah,
So her name was Bhakti Shah. And I think she was in the ashram, but then she left the ashram to start a center in Bombay. And I know Mother blessed it because she has that placard. And I used to help her a lot in Bombay with her center. And I was very close to her.
did you know the Palkiwala family?
Yeah, I knew them, but I didn't meet them as much because I also left Bombay for many years in between. So I met Dhan Palkiwala only much, much later.
Oh,
And Jahangir only when Bhakti Ben passed away because they also were very close to her. Yes, they also helped
yes.
her.
Anyone else in the ashram
Um,
that you remember? Pranab or Nolini or...
no, sadly, no. Even MP Pandit, who was still alive when I was probably old enough to meet him and remember, we didn't have any access. And I think I remember coming to the ashram and thinking, what do? I don't know what to do. I don't know who to meet. Are there classes? Is there someone I can talk to? But there's nobody except for Professor Basu was our only point of contact. And I wish that somehow, I don't know, maybe my mother would have taken a little more interest or found out or gone to meet somebody because we really didn't know anyone else. So I kind of used to just come here on my own and do my own thing and go back. But
My last question to you.
yes.
How do you feel Sri Aurobindo and Mother guiding your life?
In every way. Um, from my schooling, from my studying here, taking me abroad to study, training me in a very specific way at a very specific school, which was one of the best design schools in the world. I was privileged enough to go there, the Rhode Island School of Design. I felt Mother's hand, I felt Sri Aurobindo's hand in taking me there, and I knew that there was probably a purpose, one that I discovered later, because as a designer, my teacher, my professor also said, Devika, your work is good, you're a good designer, but who's the real Devika? Who is the Devika in the design? And I really thought hard to myself, and I said, then finally I came across the fact that what would give me the greatest joy would be to be able to express higher truths and represent them to people in a new way. And that learning I took with me from my American school. And also as a final degree project, I had worked on my final project, which was the philosophy of the Gita. But I chose to call it Hinduism as a way of life. I think it was more in reaction to seeing a lot of Buddhists around in America. That time I was surprised because I didn't know. But I think for me, Sri Aurobindo and the Mother have led me, through my work, through my studies, through my, even though some very painful relationships, but I think they were probably necessary for me, even though I cried out to the Mother, Mother, why are you making me go through all this? But I know that I had to go through certain things to come to where I am today. And today, I feel such a strong certainty that they are guiding me and with me. There's no question about the grace in my life. There's no question about all that I have, all that I've learned, all that I'm led to be is their grace and the divine grace. I know it without a doubt. I would really be nothing if it weren't for them. Really nothing. Because I know what I've struggled through, and if I did not have them to reach in towards, I could not have managed. I could not have dealt with things with my nature, being highly sensitive to the world around and relationships and people and the harshness of it. So there's no doubt.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Devika.
Thank you, Narad. I'm so honored to be part of your videos on disciples. Thank you so much.